I have been pretty hard on this team over the last 2 seasons. They deserve some love.
Yeah, 8-2 in their last 10. Not just you who's been hard on them. I think a lot of people have been hard on them, including themselves. But we should talk about AD. I have the numbers in front of me, but you do as well. You can just run through just sort of how special he has been. And this is a guy who's been a, all NBA player for most of his career, but he's operating at a different level right now than he has really at any point in his career.
This is the best that I've seen him play. Now, they asked AD after the game yesterday, or maybe it was the other night, but he had some quote where he's like, no, this is like the 4th best version of me. I don't remember a stretch where he's been this dominant on both ends of the floor. 35 a game, 15.6 rebounds, 2.7 assists. Then there's 2.9 blocks, 1.2 steals. So he's played in 9 of the 10 games. Those are his numbers over the last 9 games that he's played. 65% from the field, 45% from 3, only 1.2 attempts. And that gets to what he's doing. He's attacking the basket. He's living in the paint. He's obviously hitting some mid-range jumpers as well. 88% on free throws, 10 attempts a game.
Yeah.
He's aggressive. He's getting to the rim. This is the thing, Tommy. When we talked about the Lakers last year, when we talk about the Lakers early in this season, the narrative changes if all of a sudden you have a top 5 player on your team, which they do right now. Anthony Davis is playing like a top 5 player in the NBA.
But so how much of this is him just not popping and rolling to the basket and being around the basket? And, in the bubble, I was looking up his bubble stats when we decided we were going to talk about this today. He shot 49% from mid-range and he was 38% from 3. He hasn't been anywhere close to that shooting-wise since then. But is some of this just straight-up shot selection with him?
I think some of it is. Some of it, and again, we can see this play out with teams. We can see this play out with players where someone gets on a burner. And we talked about Klay Thompson recently, and he had a 5-game stretch where he shot 60% on threes on 10 attempts a game. Then he had a clunker against Dallas. So the league is a make-or-miss league. And Anthony Davis, for a number of seasons recently, excluding the time in the bubble, has been one of the worst jump shooters in the NBA in terms of volume jump shooters, effective field goal percentage, mid-range percentage, 3-point percent, all that stuff. It's been one of the worst, least efficient jump shooters in the NBA. They're featuring him on the block down the stretch against Milwaukee, which was their best win of the season.
Yeah, it was an awesome game.
It was an awesome game. I was working that night. I was working Warriors Bulls, and so I was watching on my monitor before we went live. I watched the 4th quarter. Down the stretch, it's like clear out the left side, LeBron James pick and roll with Anthony Davis, decisions to be made, and they just executed that over and over and over again. I still think for them to be considered a legit contender, because when you get down to the playoffs without proper spacing, without enough shooting, they're going to have problems scoring in the half court. Which leads me, Tommy, to my mad scientist theory here. It's not really a theory.
Here we go.
But look, the driving force behind this conversation right here was the fact that when I do games, I do a lot of research on these teams. So 2 weeks ago, I had the Knicks at the Warriors. Friday night, I had the Bulls at the Warriors. And so, I watch teams play, but I also look up numbers. Everybody knows I like the advanced stats and whatnot. And it's very hard to have a good offense. It's very hard to have a good offense if you don't have shooting. Like, we can talk about points in the paint, offensive rebounds.
Would you say it's impossible to have a good offense if you don't have shooting?
Well, okay. I made some charts. Now, visually, I don't even know if I'd want to show these charts on video or whatever. It looks like chicken scratch.
Show the exact photos on the video.
But look, I made a chart, and it's essentially top 10 offenses, bottom 10 offenses. And the sort of correlating stats that I looked up: 3-point attempts, 3-point makes, 3-point percentage, true shooting percentage. Obviously, true shooting percentage is tied to free throws, 2-pointers, 3-point percentage. That's all tied together. There's a little formula. There's a 0.44 somewhere in that formula. I'm not a mathematician, but I do know they use those 3 things to calculate true shooting percentage. That is a measure of efficiency. All right, well, let's do top 10 offenses real quick. I'm going to list them real quick. Boston, Phoenix, Utah, Sacramento, Denver, New Orleans, Warriors, Grizz, Mavs, Cavs. Okay. Now, true shooting percentage, with the exception of the Mavs, the 9th best offense, and the Grizz, the 8th best offense. All those teams, top 9 in true shooting percentage. The Grizz are really interesting. They're 25th in true shooting percentage, but they have a top 10 offense. Yes, why? Oh, they're second in offensive rebounding rate. You've got Brandon Clark, Steven Adams, one of the best offensive rebounders in the game, Dylan Brooks. Then you start talking about attempts. Now, Nuggets, Pelicans, Cavs, all outside the top 15 in attempts. But with the exception of the Pelicans, they're all in the top 11 in makes. Percentage-wise, all these teams in the top 17 in percentage. Most of the teams in the top 10 in percentage. You flip that, and you go to the bottom 10, and again, it's gross. It's gross. And the Bulls in particular, they're 30th in attempts, 3-point attempts. And it's a big discrepancy, about 28 a game versus Boston and Golden State at the top, who are shooting about 42 a game. They're 28th in makes, and they're just 15th, 16th in percentage and true shooting percentage. They got the 25th best offense with guys like Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. Maybe it's just, is it so simple that it just comes down to, can you space the floor with 3-point shooters?
You are the perfect person to answer this question. It seems like it's an obvious point, doesn't it?
Again, I asked Tibbs about this, and they sort of have a middle of the road offense.
Yeah.
But they're shooting a lot of threes this year. Now, they're not making a lot of threes.
Yeah.
But he's trying to modernize the offense. He just doesn't really have the personnel to do it.
But isn't some of this, and we're going to talk about Boston later on this week, and so I don't want to belabor too much with them, but isn't some of this, when we talk about personnel, it's having the right stars to optimize that personnel? So like the way that Jason and Jalen play allows, Derek White, allows my favorite, Sam Hauser, allows these guys that, may not necessarily fit in on every roster. It allows them to space the floor in a way that it might not in other places.
It's a good question. I would agree with that. And I'll go a step further and say that it's not just about the stars. It's about the role players complementing the stars. The Lakers are a great example of that, of course.
Yeah.
And I remember with the second they made that trade last fall before the season, that was my first thought.
The Russ trade.
Yeah, the Russ trade.
Yeah. But even the Pat trade was like,
well, Pat's not making shots right now.
Yeah.
So, going back to the Lakers thing, this ties in with our second thing here on shooting. Over the last 10 games, when they're 8-2, they've had the 4th best offense in the league during that stretch. A lot of that, of course, is Anthony Davis. If you have a guy averaging 35 a game, shooting 65% from the field, and 88% from the line on 10 free throw attempts, you're going to have a good offense. Okay.
Yeah.
But in addition to Anthony Davis hooping, LeBron at almost 8 attempts a game, shooting 47% from 3. Lonnie Walker, the 4th.
I was going to say,
5 attempts.
We should shout out Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker's been really good for them.
Over 5 attempts a game in the last 10. 47%. Austin Reeves only shooting 3 attempts a game. He's shooting 47% as well. So they're on a burner right now from 3. It's corresponding with Anthony Davis hooping. I would argue the two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The two go hand in hand. You're less likely to double team or send help on Anthony Davis if you know a guy is hot.
But isn't this just this? So I don't want to minimize anything that AD has done, but this is also the story of LeBron teams in general. I mean, LeBron is the ultimate. You surround LeBron with shooters, and you're going to the finals. Doesn't matter who else is doing what, And so I think that was always the frustration. I think objectively Laker fans had, and even just sort of observers had, of the last couple of years with these teams. Is it's not rocket science with LeBron. As long as he's playing at somewhat close to a level that he's played at his entire life, just put guys around him who can hit open shots, and you're going to
win. There was an article on that point about a month ago when they were really struggling, and the gist of the article, and I don't remember if it was in The Athletic or ESPN. Sorry, I read a lot of NBA articles, Tommy. I can't recall this one.
It's fine.
But hopefully it's fine. But the gist of the article was essentially the Miami Heat teams and the Cleveland Cavaliers teams were built to optimize LeBron by surrounding him with shooting, and the Lakers did that initially. They won a championship, and then the last 2 seasons, they've completely gone away from that. I'll make the point again. If Anthony Davis is playing like a top 5 player, if he's playing at this level, maybe that lack of shooting doesn't matter. But I think there's a corresponding thing here with them shooting the shit out of the ball and Anthony Davis hooping. The full episode of The Old Man and the Three Things is available exclusively on Amazon Music.